Hi, everyone. My name is Taj Yale. I'm the founder and CEO of Think Impact. We are a digital marketing company based out of Rochester Hills, Michigan. And today we are very fortunate to have Ms. LaTasha James. She's the founder and CEO of James and Park, based out of Detroit, Michigan. And after working as a social media strategist and content creator for dozens of startups within the Michigan area, as well as large companies such as Kelly Services, she decided to venture out and start up her own company. So thanks, Ms. James, again for being on our interview today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So the first question that I had was, what made you want to go from the corporate and working with some startups to actually finding James and Park and kind of being an entrepreneur and freelancer?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I mean, I've kind of always done a little bit of freelancing here and there. So my freelancing journey really started back in college. I was studying film and video and just kind of didn't fully know what I wanted to do. I kind of, for a while, wanted to work in the news, and then I wanted to go more in the marketing side and, just kind of was dabbling in different things. And to get more experience making videos, I was doing a lot of random freelance gigs for people in my hometown and things like that. So, I'd always had a blog as well. So I did a lot of freelance writing back in college just to sort of supplement my college income. And so I knew that freelancing was a possibility. And I always continued freelancing even throughout working in my corporate jobs. I always had a side hustle just because I'm like, I don't know. I love being busy. I'm just this kind of person who can't sit still. I'm from Kalamazoo, Michigan originally. So when I moved to Detroit for my first corporate job, I didn't have any friends yet. I was new to the city. So what else was I going to do besides, take a gig and moonlight a little bit. So I had always kind of been in both worlds. And really my decision to go full-time freelance was, I think I was just kind of at a bit of a fork in the road where I was getting really busy in my business and I was starting to have to turn down work. And, I really felt like the work I was doing was really fulfilling me and really lighting me up. And that's not to say that the work in corporate America I didn't, because I actually really am grateful that I had those experiences as kind of a stepping stone to where I am now. But I just felt really called to go the entrepreneurship route and at least give it a shot. And since I was getting business, I figured let's kind of ride this wave and see where it takes me.
Yeah, sounds great. And can you share your founding story of James and Park, what challenges you might have faced along the way and how you overcame those challenges as well?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, like I said, I was always kind of freelancing, and I made the decision to officially start a business really because of that demand. And I needed help. I needed to, work with other people and pull people in sometimes for some projects because I didn't have the bandwidth to do everything. And so my thought process was starting an agency model made a little bit more sense because it allowed me to actually grow a bit more. And I didn't necessarily have to be so hands-on in every single project if I didn't want to. So that's why I started the business officially. Challenges with that, I think, I built kind of my personal brand up based on doing different, freelancing tips, and I have a podcast and I have a YouTube channel and all this stuff. And I think sometimes I have a hard time differentiating between LaTasha, the person, and James and Park, the business, which obviously, I mean, this, being the face of a company, you're going to be, a part of people's thought process when they think of your business. But sometimes there can be certain expectations or it doesn't necessarily represent the business as a whole. I think, watching a YouTube video isn't necessarily getting to know the business. It's getting to know the face behind the business. So I think that's a big challenge that I still kind of sometimes have to work through.
That's great. So I know one of the services that you offer within your company, I believe, is a course on personal branding and all of that. So what prompted you through maybe corporate or through your entrepreneurial journey? What kind of prompted that, and what can others maybe learn from that course as well?
Yeah, sure. So I have quite a few. I have I think 3 courses now, and That one, the personal branding one, is actually the second one I created. The first one I created really came from YouTube comments. Like, people were asking me so many questions about what I did, and asking me how to become a social media manager and how to start freelancing. And I love answering those things in YouTube videos, but the format of a YouTube video is like 10 to 20 minutes or something. It doesn't even scratch the surface of what really goes into starting a business. So I really wanted to make a couple of courses that really outlined everything. And yeah, personal branding is relevant to everybody. It's relevant to business owners. It's relevant to people who work day jobs. It's relevant to people in the gig economy, like really everyone. So I thought it would be helpful because it was I think that's an area of social media that a lot of people forget about. And I work with my clients a lot on that as well, is your executives, your salespeople, your marketing people, they need to be on social media too. Like, we can post from the brand account, but if there's no, personal brand element, there's no employee advocacy, it's going to be really hard to get your message across just from brand pages.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know being a fellow entrepreneur yourself, entrepreneurship can be difficult as it is. And then freelancing can even kind of be more difficult in terms of making it like a full-time career. So where do you see freelancing going or trending towards, and how does a person that might be interested in freelancing know if it's the right job for them to pursue?
Yeah. Well, as far as the outlook for it, I mean, I honestly have a pretty optimistic outlook. I'm kind of cautiously optimistic considering all that's going on in the world right now, obviously. But, a lot of the research that I've done shows actually, that freelancing is trending upwards, and it has in past recessions and things like that. People might be looking, big organizations might be looking to cut costs. And therefore reaching out to a freelancer is often a more economic solution for them. So I definitely encourage people to keep their eyes open and their options open to freelancing, especially, when we think about people who are graduating this month, graduating college, or next month, or whenever, maybe in your mind, you might be looking for a full-time job, but just keeping your options open to potential freelance opportunities, because I do see a lot more of them popping up with all that's going on. I think as far as knowing whether or not it's right for you is testing it out. Like, that's what I did. I mean, I've kind of been on this slow growth for years. I mean, I started back when I was a sophomore or a junior in college, just by taking one writing gig. It was a $20 an article gig. It was like paid nothing, but it was, there's low risk for that too. So I didn't feel like I had to deliver this intense marketing plan or anything like that if I wasn't fully confident in myself yet. It was just one blog. So if I hated it, never had to do it again, or, and so just start, with a side hustle. Just start with a small project, see how it goes, see if you like it, and see if you're good at it and you can see yourself scaling it.
Sounds great. So I have some more questions, but I want to open it up for people that are tuning in, maybe if they have questions. And then maybe resume with some of the other questions that I had.
Yeah, sounds good.
I got a quick question on in terms of freelance and things like that. Are you mainly concentrating towards social impact type of situations, or is it more towards establishment, solid established corporations? Because big corporations, they have their own marketing people trying to get things done and whatnot, and they know their market segments. So for you, are you concentrating towards specific market segments and towards startups, or is it much more established? Because young companies, they're looking to market, they don't have people, that's good. On the other hand, large corporations, they have bigger budget, but they have their own people. So you're kind of pushed between a hard and a rock place. So how do you find yourself trying to tap into those markets?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And for me, it's a little bit of both. So I would say majority of my business consists of funded startups. So startups that actually have a little bit of budget to spend, or hopefully more than a little bit of budget to spend. So that's the majority of my business. I do work with some early stage startups, but like I said, the majority of my business are actually funded startups, because most early stage startups, are really trying to bootstrap. I have developed a few other offerings for those folks. Like we talked about, I have courses, or I'll just do one-off consulting where people can book like a 1-hour consulting hour with me, where maybe their team can learn how to do things themselves if they're not looking for someone to full on, get in the weeds with their ads accounts and creating content for them and things like that. So I think it's important to have different offerings and kind of different levels to your services. And then I do also work with some corporate partners as well. For them, majority of them, what I'm doing is I'll do like social media strategies or marketing strategies or audits for them, where they'll be looking to bring in an external resource to kind of be a second pair of eyes for them. They might have an established marketing team already, but they want somebody to kind of give that expert opinion and do some reporting or do some road mapping for them. So long story short, it's a little bit of each. I think you just have to tailor your offer to this specific type of company.
As a follow-up, what are the metrics you put on yourself with the if there is a client, for example, what are the metrics that you have a content saying, yep, I was able to deliver, and if so, what are those metrics, and how do you cumulatively have an aggression to aggregated value towards those things?
Yeah, it really depends on the client's goals. So some clients, an e-commerce company, obviously their goal is going to be to sell product. So it's my job to make sure as a marketing consultant that we have all of the tracking set up so that I can actually track down to conversions, so that I can tell them, hey, we helped you sell, however much percentage more product than last month. If it's more of a branding play, so maybe it's a brand new company who's really just looking for press, or who's looking to impress potential investors, and get word of mouth kind of spread, then I'm going to be looking at awareness metrics like reach and impressions. How many accounts are we actually getting into the news feeds of, how much engagement are we getting, how many comments and things like that are we getting. So really depends on the goal, but I would say those are probably the most common, are either going to be brand awareness metrics or conversion metrics.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I know we had a couple of late people. Oh, sorry.
Oh, no, you're fine.
No, I think there's another question coming,
gotcha.
I think. Sorry.
Yeah, hi, LaTasha. You spoke about personal branding earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah, so do you think it's a necessity or a criteria that people look for when hiring currently, say, in like the corporate world? Or like, what's the value that it adds? Is it like a big value?
Yeah, I think, again, I think it depends on the type of job that you're looking for. Obviously, like in a marketing role, I think that it's very important. I saw a tweet the other day that said like, your Twitter profile is your number one resume or something like that. And I think if you're working in social media or in marketing, you have to consider what your digital presence says about you. But I think not just for social or not just marketing roles, I think just in general, it is important. People do look at those things, and it doesn't mean that you have to be, this like famous YouTuber or something like that, but just having is showing that you have some interest in your field, showing that you have connections in your field is really valuable to companies. I obviously can't speak for all companies, but I definitely think that it helps. It definitely doesn't hurt to have a personal brand.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
We had someone late join as well. Did you have a question or All right, I guess I'll go with the remaining questions that I had then, if that's okay.
Yeah.
So during these COVID times, obviously it's uncharted territory. So are there specific actions that James and Park or you as an influencer have had to take to adjust to that? And a follow-up to that is, what other tactics can you suggest that other small businesses or companies in general can kind of deploy in their strategic advantage or to be a first mover advantage in their space?
Yeah. I mean, I luckily, business hasn't really been affected too much, but I have been being proactive about, like I mentioned earlier, offering some services at different price points, just kind of keeping in mind that many people are looking to cut budgets a bit or looking for more of like a self-serve solution. So I've had to be adaptable and be proactive about maybe offering some of those one-off consulting packages where I normally book them in 3-month packages only. I'm offering them by the hour now. And also just to be helpful to people too. I think I enjoy helping people. And I know a lot of companies are struggling right now and trying to figure out how do we go digital? How do we move our business online? So I want to be a help to people if I can. So that's one thing I've been doing. As far as like the influencer side of things, a lot of companies have been cutting their affiliate marketing programs. That's been a big trend. And so that's never been something that I relied on necessarily as, a big chunk of my income or anything, but I just think it speaks to, for everybody. I think a lot of times there's like the business world and then there's the influencer world, and influencers are business owners. They're freelancers essentially. And it's important for any business to have multiple revenue streams. So I am big on, like I said, the courses. I think that so many people, it's so easy to put together a course nowadays. I use Thinkific to host all of my courses. And it started as something that was, I was getting like a random $20 a month or something like that from it. And it's actually grown over the past few years to become a really big revenue stream for me. So I think just thinking of different offerings that you can deliver either as a business or as an influencer so that you're not ever, completely thrown off guard if one of those revenue streams gets cut.
Okay, sounds good. And then kind of along the influencer line, can you talk about how that plays a critical role within the digital world when it comes to promoting or helping market? If you're a startup, having those relationships and kind of building up the following base by having like a recognized influencer.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of goes along with what we mentioned for personal branding. I mean, I think personal branding and influencer marketing, they kind of go hand in hand, because, people nowadays, they trust a friend or they trust, somebody that they admire or follow online more than they're going to trust a brand page. So if you post something on LinkedIn and we're connected on LinkedIn, I'm probably going to click on it. I'm probably going to take your opinion to heart because I, respect your work and I know who you are. If a random company tries to sell me the same thing, it's like we're so used to ads nowadays, and we're getting more and more keen on ads and like aware of ads that we just don't even pay attention to them anymore. So I think influencer marketing kind of humanizes advertising a bit, and you're not only getting that aspect of it of actually getting the influence, I guess, but you're also getting content. And I mean, I've worked in corporate America. I know how expensive buying a video or buying high quality photos can be, like getting a team to come in and shoot high quality work for you, and using influencer marketing just to populate your own social feeds or get content for your websites can be really valuable too.
What do you see the trend in terms of video marketing? Do you see that having a big play going forward within the social realm, or kind of where do you see that trending?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a huge proponent of video. That's a big part of what I do. And I honestly, just anecdotally, have seen more and more demand for video in the past couple of years. I think that people are kind of starting to see the value of it because, you hire a company like mine to shoot one video or to edit one video, and you can have so many different pieces of content. You can make a podcast out of it. You can transcribe it and have a blog post. You can have Instagram content, LinkedIn content, like on and on. I mean, it's so valuable. And I think the more that social grows, the more people are kind of investing in video, because it is one of the more engaging formats. So I see it growing, and I hope it continues to grow, because I'm really passionate about it.
That's great. So are there any influencers within the social realm that you kind of look to when creating content, or trying to find ways to repurpose maybe content that you've already put out?
Yeah, like any influencers that I kind of watch their content, or
Yeah, like follow or just like look up to.
Yeah. Man, like I watch so much YouTube, but honestly, it's kind of funny because I don't really watch channels. I'm like objective focused. So like if I get a new camera, I will look up, Canon 80D, blah, blah, blah. And like, that's just how I find videos. So, that's how I've been consuming content a lot more than like following specific channels, which I know is bad. I'm like a bad example of that. But yeah, that's kind of how I watch YouTube nowadays. And I think that's how a lot of consumers do. And I think that kind of speaks to, what we're talking about influencer marketing is people buy a product or a camera or, whatever it is. If they want to know how to fix their car, I mean, it extends to everything. That's how we look things up. So it's like the new Google. I mean, I don't even Google things as much anymore. I'm just going instantly to YouTube.
Oh, okay. That's cool. So what would be some business tips or advice or lessons that you learned along the way to like aspiring entrepreneurs or current entrepreneurs that they can use in their startup journey?
Yeah. I mean, my number one tip is to diversify your revenue for sure. So, if you have proven that you can freelance successfully, or a freelance writer or social media manager, think about what else you can offer. And that's maybe a passive type of income. Maybe you can create a course or write an ebook or start a YouTube channel or start a podcast or whatever. Not to do all the things, not to feel like you have to constantly be running around crazy busy, but just having a couple of different things to lean on. And then I also think be adaptable. So kind of similar, but again, just being able to offer different things to meet people where they are, because times change, circumstances change. I mean, I don't think I ever, when I thought about starting a business, considered a potential global pandemic as something that I would have to deal with. But here we are, and a lot of businesses are being affected. So I think a lot of being a successful entrepreneur is knowing how to pivot and knowing how to adapt to whatever weird situation, the world or the business is going through. So I think those are my top two.
For your podcasts, maybe if you can, for some people that have tuned in, can you touch on the topics that you cover and what your vision is, and if that's being met?
Yeah. My podcast is called the Freelance Friday Podcast. So it's really all about freelancing. It focuses a lot on just tips and advice for entrepreneurs. I do some interviews. I do like half and half of interviews and just solo episodes. So I share, marketing tips. I talk about, tax tips, just general like mindset and entrepreneurship, kind of a little bit of everything. I started, again, it was kind of just a demand thing. Like people were asking questions on my YouTube channel that were just like way too into, I'm like, I could talk about this for an hour. So I was like, okay, maybe I should talk about it for an hour. And people were also telling me that they were watching my YouTube videos on, they were like flipping their phone over while they were at work and putting their headphones and listening to it like a podcast. And I was like, oh, maybe I should just get a real microphone and make a real podcast. So that's how that started. And I just kind of take it week by week. Like I just sort of share things that are going on that I'm dealing with week by week. So I think last week I talked about kind of how I was dealing with adjusting to the stay-at-home orders and how it was affecting my business, and some of the things I was doing to pivot my business, adjusting to working from home full-time, all that kind of stuff. So just kind of share like things that are timely and hopefully helpful to people.
That's great. And then where do you see with like Tech Town and kind of the emerging co-working spaces from an entrepreneurial standpoint, where do you see the Detroit kind of entrepreneurial scene going, or
Yeah.
and how that might affect post
Yeah.
pandemic times for small businesses?
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of co-working spaces now. I mean, it's crazy because I moved here 5 years ago. And even just in that short period of time, I mean, that was like before WeWork was here. And so it started with WeWork really. There was a couple of smaller ones, Bamboo and things like that. And yeah, there's so many now. So it's great that there's so many options. I can't really speak to the future of it. Unfortunately, I don't know. I hope, especially for the smaller guys, I hope that they're able to get through this, because that definitely has been a thought for me is, I hope they're going to get through it business wise. But I do think that it's very valuable, like the resources that we have here. I went to my first Detroit Startup Week last year in April. Have you ever been?
No, I've heard. I mean, I know the organizer for that, but I've never unfortunately made it out there.
Yeah, you have to. I mean, I would say you should go this year, but I'm pretty sure it probably isn't happening this year. But next year you have to go, because it was super, super valuable. It's totally free. And I was like, I can't believe this is a free conference. I mean, it was more valuable than some of the conferences that I've paid like thousands of dollars for a ticket to go to. So yeah, I mean, I think there's a really good community here, and there's just really good people here. Like we're still the Midwest, like, so we're still nice for the most part, which I think is really important. It's a welcoming community, and there's a lot of good resources here. So I'm hopeful about it.
Great. And then the last question that I had was, are there any motivational messages that you can kind of talk about? Maybe if, the entrepreneurs are kind of down and out or demotivated. I think the pandemic has kind of shifted and disrupted a lot of traditional or normal things within the business world.
Mm-hmm.
So if there's any uplifting messages maybe that you can provide for people that are tuning in.
Yeah, I mean, I think as far as, what's going on right now, I think it's important to recognize that there are still people who need you. And I think that that's one of the things that was a big barrier for me when it came to like selling and promoting myself, was I never felt truly confident in my offer. Like I never felt like I was, until I felt like I was truly helping people and truly understanding that value that I could give, I had a big roadblock about selling. And now, like, I don't feel guilty when I offer something to somebody, or when I, quote unquote, sell to somebody, because I'm understanding that I'm helping them. And I think it's important to shift that mindset, because there are a lot of companies out there, just speaking to digital, there are so many companies out there who have no idea how to sell a product online, even though that they have the inventory to do so. They have the ability to offer a digital version of, their workout class. They could do it over Zoom, or there's so many different ways that you can monetize things in this new world that we're living in. And there's so many people who don't understand how to do that. You can be a huge value to them by teaching them that, by, offering them coaching or doing that service for them, and you can really deliver ROI for them. So I think that's something that I encourage people to do, is stop looking at it as like, I'm trying to take money from these struggling businesses, as opposed to I'm trying to give value to these businesses and hopefully get them up on their feet again. So that's something that helps me when I'm struggling a little bit. And then I think also just realizing too, that honestly, like, we live in a better time than ever. I mean, this is a terrible thing that's happening. Obviously, I would never try to make light of that, but like, this is the best time that we've ever lived through to experience something like that. Like, so many people can still go to work, from home. There's so many different opportunities just from opening up your laptop to make money, and you can start a business today on your computer.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so it's a terrible time, but it's a better time than ever to be experiencing this. And there's a lot of opportunities now that we just didn't have 20, 40, 50 years ago. So hopefully can give you a little light of optimism there, that there are just so many different opportunities to start a side hustle, start a gig, go on Upwork. Like there's so many different possibilities right now.
That was my other quick next question too, I
Yeah.
guess, maybe one more question.
Yeah.
Like with competition in terms of scalability, like Upwork and Freelancer, besides the scalability, is James and Park taking like a unique approach, I guess, to draw clients on the freelancing side and the marketing side? Say compared to like a site like Upwork or Freelancer or Fiverr and those types of sites?
Yeah, I mean, I pull people in to work with me on projects when I need them. So I think that is where the scalability comes in. I don't always necessarily need to work with a big team. A lot of my work is pretty straightforward. It's things that I can do. But I like having the option to bring in a bigger team if it's a really big project or something that maybe I'm not a super expert in and I need somebody to help run ads or something like that. I like having that option to do so. So yeah, I mean, I don't operate like a marketplace like an Upwork would or anything like that. It's very much people and relationships that I've cultivated and that I've built up over the years. So I'm bringing people in based on their strengths and like based on their skill set that I know that they have.
All right, sounds great. Thank you, Ms. James, again for accommodating our interview. I appreciate it. And
Of course.
I'm sure we'll be in touch.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.